Dragons are intelligent. More intelligent than men, according to some maesters.
We find Tyrion Lannister at a moment of what you can only call calculated insanity. He's decided to walk into a dark pit beneath the Great Pyramid of Meereen, alone, with just a single torch.
The last dragons were no larger than cats. They must be unchained or they'll waste away.
His goal? To free 2 dragons that have been chained up and starving for weeks. I mean, think about that for a second. This is a man who has survived by using his mind, not his body. He has talked his way out of death more times than anyone can count.
I am their friend. Do they know that? They will.
And now he is betting everything on the idea that 2 angry, hungry dragons will somehow recognize him as a friend. The thing that makes this scene work so well is that it takes one of the show's smartest characters and puts him in a situation where intelligence alone cannot save him. Tyrion can read every book ever written about dragons. He can know their history inside and out, but none of that matters if Rhaegal and Viserion decide to burn him alive. What leads to this moment is actually a pretty grim conversation in the throne room.
They are not eating. They haven't touched any food since Queen Daenerys left.
Missandei and Grey Worm tell Tyrion that the 2 remaining dragons have stopped eating, like completely stopped. They are starving themselves to death down in those catacombs, and Tyrion understands something that everyone else seems to miss.
Dragons do not do well in captivity.
He knows that dragons do not do well in captivity. He has read about how the Targaryen dragons grew smaller and weaker with each generation after they started being locked up in the dragon pit.
A few generations later, the last dragons were no larger than cats.
The great dragons of Aegon the Conqueror were massive, terrifying beasts. But by the end of the Targaryen dynasty, the last dragons were barely the size of large dogs, so Tyrion makes the call. He decides that someone has to go down there and unchain them, and because he is Tyrion, he decides that someone should be him. Varys goes with him to the entrance, but actually, Varys only goes so far. He stays at the top of the stairs while Tyrion descends into the darkness alone. And honestly, that detail says so much about their relationship. Varys is smart enough to know when not to take unnecessary risks. He positions himself right at the boundary between safety and danger. Meanwhile, Tyrion walks forward with just that single torch, heading into a space so dark that the dragons could be anywhere. The production team made a deliberate choice here to keep the crypts almost entirely black, except for the light from his torch. It creates this feeling that Tyrion is walking into the unknown, into a void where ancient creatures are waiting. Then, one of the dragons emerges from the shadows. And this is where Peter Dinklage does something really special with his performance. Tyrion maintains eye contact. He does not run, he does not scream, he just keeps looking at this enormous beast that could kill him in an instant. The dragon releases a burst of flame that stops just inches from his face, like inches, and Tyrion still does not flinch away. He actually puts down his torch and starts moving closer. He begins speaking to them in this gentle, calm voice.
I'm friends with your mother.
Telling them that he is a friend of their mother. He says he is here to help. Do not eat the help. There is humor in his words, but underneath that humor is genuine fear. You can hear it in how carefully he chooses each sentence. And then Tyrion tells them a story. He tells Rhaegal and Viserion about how, when he was a little boy, he asked his uncles what he wanted for his nameday present.
It wouldn't even have to be a big dragon, I told him.
And little Tyrion, this small child who was already being treated as less than human by most of his family, asked for a dragon. He did not even ask for a big one. He just wanted a small dragon, something little like him.
Like it was the funniest thing they'd ever heard.
And everyone laughed. His family thought it was the funniest thing they had ever heard. Then his father, Tyrion Lannister, told him the truth. Dragons were extinct. They had been dead for over a century.
I cried myself to sleep that night.
And that night, Tyrion cried himself to sleep. This story is doing so much work in this scene. It establishes that Tyrion has been fascinated by dragons his entire life. It shows us another moment where his family dismissed him and made him feel worthless, and it creates an emotional connection between Tyrion and these two creatures that no one else in Meereen could possibly have. The physicality of what happens next is so carefully choreographed. Tyrion is finally close enough to touch the first dragon. He reaches out and releases the locking pin on the collar around its neck. The metal falls away, and then the second dragon does something remarkable. It turns its head to the side and offers its own neck to Tyrion, like it watches what happened to its sibling, understands that this little man just freed it, and presents itself to receive the same gift. Tyrion unlocks the second collar. Both dragons retreat deeper into the catacombs, and Tyrion makes his way back up the stairs to Varys. The line he delivers when he reaches the top is perfect.
Next time I have an idea like that, punch me in the face.
He tells Varys that the next time he has an idea like that, punch him in the face. Now here is where things get really interesting for fans who follow the deeper theories about this show. There is a fan theory that has been around for years called A plus J equals T. The A stands for Aerys, as in the Mad King Aerys Targaryen. The J stands for Joanna Lannister, Tyrion's mother, and the T stands for Tyrion himself. The theory suggests that Tyrion might actually be the illegitimate son of the Mad King, not Tywin Lannister. There are several pieces of evidence that people point to. In the books, Barristan Selmy tells Daenerys that Aerys lusted after Joanna and behaved inappropriately at her wedding to Tywin. There is also that famous line where Tywin tells Tyrion that he cannot prove Tyrion is not his son. Plus, Tyrion has this lifelong obsession with dragons that does not quite make sense for a Lannister, but would make perfect sense for someone with Targaryen blood. The scene in the catacombs adds fuel to this fire, because here is the thing about dragons in this world. They are not just big lizards, they have deep connections to Valyrian blood. The Targaryens were able to ride dragons because of their Valyrian heritage. So when Tyrion walks into that pit and the dragons do not kill him, when they actually seem to trust him and allow him to remove their chains, fans took that as possible confirmation of the theory. Maybe the dragons sensed something in him. Maybe they recognized Targaryen blood flowing through his veins. It is never confirmed in the show, and that is probably intentional. The creators wanted to leave it ambiguous, but the parallel between Tyrion and Jon Snow is hard to ignore. Jon, whose true parentage was hidden for years, turns out to be a Targaryen. What if Tyrion's true parentage is also being hidden from us? Whether you believe the theory or not, this scene represents something crucial for Tyrion as a character. His entire life, he has been told that he is less than. He is too small, too ugly, too much of a monster. His father never loved him. His sister wanted him dead. The only value anyone saw in him was his clever mind. But in this moment, standing in front of two dragons that could destroy him without effort, Tyrion proves that there is something special about him. Maybe it is Targaryen blood. Maybe it is just that dragons really are intelligent enough to recognize a friend. Maybe it is simply that Tyrion's lifetime of suffering has given him the ability to connect with other creatures who are trapped and misunderstood. The scene does not give us a definitive answer because it does not need to. What makes this moment land so hard is the callback to his childhood. That little boy who wanted a dragon and was told they were all dead. He is now standing in front of living, breathing dragons. He actually gets to touch one. He gets to free them. It took decades, but Tyrion's dream came true in the strangest possible way. There is something deeply moving about watching a character who has been beaten down by life finally getting to experience something he never thought he would see. And it happens not because someone gave it to him, but because he had the courage to walk into the darkness and reach out his hand. The show uses this scene to accomplish multiple things at once. It establishes Tyrion's value to Daenerys before she even returns. It creates tension about whether he will survive. It deepens our understanding of his backstory and his lifelong fascination with these creatures. And it plants seeds for the Targaryen theory that fans would debate for years. All of this happens in just a few minutes of screen time in a dimly lit room with minimal dialogue. Sometimes the most powerful scenes are the quiet ones. Tyrion walking into the dark, the flame stopping just short of his face, his trembling voice telling a story about a lonely child who dreamed of dragons, and then those dragons, against all odds, deciding to trust him. There is also something worth noting about the line Tyrion delivers earlier in the episode. When he is discussing the dragon situation with Missandei and Grey Worm, he says one of his most quoted lines from the entire series.
I drink and I know things.
That is what I do. I drink and I know things. It sounds like a joke, and it kind of is a joke, but it also perfectly captures who Tyrion is as a person. He has spent his entire life compensating for being underestimated. He read more books than anyone. He studied more history than the Maesters. And all of that knowledge he gathered over the years, all those hours spent reading about dragons when he should have been sleeping, it all pays off in this one moment. He knew that dragons were intelligent. He knew they could be reasoned with if you approached them correctly. He knew their history, their psychology, their needs. So when everyone else saw two dangerous monsters, Tyrion saw two prisoners who needed to be set free. The lighting in this scene deserves special attention too. The production notes confirm that they intentionally kept everything dark except for Tyrion's torch. This was a practical choice because they were filming on a soundstage rather than in the original location they used in earlier seasons. But it also creates a powerful visual effect. Tyrion is literally a small point of light moving through absolute darkness. The dragons are hidden until they choose to reveal themselves. It makes Tyrion seem even smaller and more vulnerable than usual. And when the dragonfire erupts, it briefly illuminates everything in this harsh orange glow before plunging back into shadow. The camera stays close on Tyrion's face throughout most of the scene, letting us see every flicker of fear and wonder that crosses his expression. Peter Dinklage absolutely earned his paycheck in this episode, honestly. So what does this particular scene ultimately tell us? It tells us that Tyrion, despite everything, still has the capacity for wonder. He can still be that little boy who dreamed of dragons. It tells us that genuine connection can succeed where force would fail. Tyrion does not ever demand obedience. He simply asks for trust. And it tells us that the mysteries of blood and heritage run deeper than anyone understands. The dragons accepted him. They let him free them. Why did they trust him? We may actually never get a complete answer. Maybe that is exactly how it should be.